Hi, everybody. I am so thrilled to be here today with you. Well, because I have a very VIP person in the room with me today. And yes, I'm in the studio still. They're going to let me out shortly, they told me. But right now, we're back in the studio. And I am with State Senator Susan Moran for the Plymouth and Barnstable District. And hi, Susan. Can we touch?
Yes, we can. I'm
Yay!
so happy to be here. It's just energizing to be with your crew and to look forward to a conversation with you. Thank you for doing this.
Well, listen, what's going on? I know you've just probably been sitting around doing nothing.
Well, we've been doing kind of a 360 bunch of great things in the sense that we've got a really uplifting picture on the budget, and there's been an agreement with leadership and the governor to have community conversations about the best way to spend the bulk of that going forward. And that's something that I have governed on since I was chair of the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth and Assembly of Delegates deputy speaker in Barnstable County, because you don't really get the sense of the true needs unless you talk to the boots on the ground, folks who are actually dealing with the concerns. So we're looking at education. We're looking at transportation. This really goes in the course with my joint committees. I'm chair of consumer protection, and we are focused on the economy in many respects, whether it's getting restaurants open, really keeping that outdoor restaurant feel that we especially have enjoyed on the Cape and that have really helped the business's bottom line. So a lot of economic development.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's excellent, actually. Now, I was disappointed a year and a half ago with. Well, I wasn't disappointed a year and a half ago. I guess I was disappointed maybe 6 or 7 months ago with our governor, with the rollout of the vaccine. Now, it's all gone. I got my vaccine. My husband got his vaccine. However, I got to, what was really great is I got to talk to our health department officials here. Why didn't they go through the health department on things like that? Because the health department, they got boots on the ground. And here in Sandwich, we got a guy who runs our fire department who that's his master's degree is in pandemics.
Well, first let me say that Sandwich was on the cutting edge of really looking at it locally, despite the governor's mandate, which was more big business technology based, sort of bring something new in as opposed to using the existing system and the existing experts. And I completely agree with you. That was one of the first things I disagreed very vehemently with the governor, and because the local folks know where the biggest needs are.
Right.
And so what I did was I worked with Senator Sear, Rep. Peake, and the rest of the delegation in the Cape to target our own sort of Cape effort.
Right.
And we actually were successful in having the greatest rate of vaccinated folks through that method. So even though we worked within the governor's guidelines, we were able to in fact, Rep. Fernandez and I got a lot of money so that Barnstable County could really have a vibrant and vigorous response. And that's why we did so well. That all being said, we are having rising numbers in Provincetown, for example, and that's just
and Harwich
as
Why
well.
In Harwich, for gosh sakes.
I look at it as sort of the canary in the
coal mine.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think we need to pay attention. I don't think we freeze or panic or anything like that.
No.
I think we really look at what is good common sense. Look at your situation, look at your own health situation and your families, and do what's right for you. We've got to look towards opening schools come September, and make sure that we do common sense things. Listen to the union members, listen to the administration. Those are the folks that see the children every day, look at the learning needs. And in fact, part of the budget successes that I've brought to the district include $500,000 funding for mental health, for childcare situations where there are challenges. And I'm proud to say that I have, I'm the one of two sponsors and the only female Senate sponsor for the Universal Child Care Bill.
That's
you can
wonderful.
see it at commonstartma.org. And it's when you look at restarting the economy, which we all depend on, that is the real path toward having families buy their own homes, being able to afford rent, because a first-year childcare costs as much as a year at UMass Amherst
it's
or a
awful.
mortgage. And so if we can put some of this government funding over the next 5 years into helping families get their child care situation solid and confident from age 0,
Right.
women are going to be able to follow their careers without so much interruption so that they can stay on the path that they have earned. We're going to have childcare businesses that are not always operating in the red because they're going to get funding that will in turn enable them to help the professionals that work in the childcare business attain degrees that they want so that they can be paid as much as, for example, a public school kindergarten teacher. So it's shoring up the whole system, just as we did with universal health care, but for child care. And it helps all ages with that confidence of being able to own your own home and have that, the weight of your opinion, which is, tied to a feeling solid for your family and especially your kids and your, maybe older adults. So that's huge right now.
Right. Well, and you're right about childcare. It's always been ridiculously expensive and hard to find.
Right.
And hard to find. I mean, that's why we lose a lot of people on Cape Cod, is because they tend to go off Cape Cod, not only for the jobs, but who's going to take care of my kids besides where am I going to live, and those other big questions, the big questions of everything. You mentioned mental health and with child development. I think that's how you put it.
Yes.
I heard a statistic from your hometown, Falmouth, this last year, that there was a huge percentage of kids who were sophomore, juniors, and seniors that were struggling because of the pandemic. They were struggling academically because they even though they were probably all very proficient on video games, they didn't do well in that kind of situation, the online learning. They were worried. They didn't say much to their parents. They just were worried, and they were sad, and they couldn't be with their friends, and they couldn't do the things they would normally do. And I think we're going to have an after effect of that, almost like PTSD for some of these kids.
Certainly, that's been recognized. You're absolutely right, and that's where part of this funding is going directly. And I think that the thrust should be, in part, it's a unique generation because of the experience of the pandemic. And how do we validate that for the kids and for the parents and for the teachers in a way that we can take strength from and learn lessons from? And with respect to the parents, when you look at the upheaval of having to hybrid school or homeschool, how do you do that when you don't have a computer or only have one computer so that the family has to share?
Right.
How do you figure out an arrangement with your working situation that's flexible and part-time? So what I immediately did was I went for funding for computers for educators. We've looked, Chapter 90 funds are coming back. We've these fundamental municipal framework that we've got to really take a hard look at going forward as the Senate President Spilka and reaches out to the community and looks at where do you need the ARPA funds that are coming in right now, these big federal dollars. And I think that the school system is one of the first places to look because it's such a technical sort of problem. We've got old buildings. right? So
Right.
that has to do with ventilation. We've got a work force of teachers and administrators who are in various states of health and age, and it's really a microcosm of our entire community. So I'm looking forward to those conversations.
Well, and also we have lousy internet access on the Cape. I mean, I have Verizon. There's Comcast. I hear bad things about both. I have Verizon. I can tell you bad things about it. It's spotty at best, and it's slow. And somebody said, "Well, you can speed it up." No, we don't get FiOS here because they won't bring it underneath the canal.
You're so right. And
So, is there another way that we can have it? Is there, with Cape wide access? Is there a signaling issue, thing that they can do with internet now? I'm sure they've improved it.
Yes and no. I think that you really are spotlighting an issue that I've been concerned about since I was a select board member in Falmouth. I was vice chair of the Falmouth Economic Development Industrial Corporation, as I was also chair of Barnstable County Economic Development, and it is a lifeline. It is the way we connect telemedicine right now. And way back, several years ago, we put money in the town toward a small group that were investigating the possibility of municipal broadband.
Right.
And fast forward to now, I was able to put $150,000 in the budget toward that effort. And we've got those same group of experts. It's going to be for Cape Wide. They are meeting with all the municipalities. They're looking at whether Barnstable County, we have a terrific county government that really gives us bang for the buck in being able to put the island of Cape Cod together towards initiatives. And so we're in a unique position to really look at municipal broadband as something that's not only going to benefit all of us, whether it's your doctor, your school, but I think it's going to be an engine for our sustainability in the economy on the Cape. Because when you look at the demographic of being retirement folks, especially post-pandemic, people have decided to come to the Cape
with kids
and without and stay, right? So, I think it's going to be challenging, but I look at it as a springboard that we, as government officials, we work. The state should work with the municipalities and help shore those things up by giving tools for the municipality and the towns on the Cape to really do the job the way that they see fit. And that means people voting. That means folks participating in your local government. That's how I got recruited as, somebody should run for a Board of Selectmen member. And they turned to me and I said, okay, I'll do it. Everyone can do that.
Right. Well, I agree with you. We, in this community, we need to have, I'm going to be quite honest, we need to have more women involved in town government. We do have a assistant town director.
Heather?
Heather. I'm sorry, I can't remember her exact title. Anyway, and she's wonderful. But she's
smart lady.
Very smart lady. Very smart lady. And so accomplished. My point is, we got one. And we need more. I mean, do we have administrators in that office? Absolutely we do. But we need women above the administration. Not that there's anything wrong with those kinds of jobs and into the other jobs. We need women selectmen in this town. We need women standing up and saying, no, for the schools, we really should support them on this. And not just letting those folks that only look at the dollars and cents say, no, we can't. So I agree with you there, certainly 100%. Everybody out there knows how I feel about things like this. Anyway, I'm pretty open about it.
I think it's well known.
Anyway, so the other thing is, oh my gosh, I read your letter that you sent to the base, and shame on them. I actually saw the first letter that went to Wendy Northcross when she was the executive director, who's now stepped down and retired and going on to other things, though she's not retired for too long.
She's a powerhouse.
She sure is. And I was fortunate to be on that board for such a long time. And anyway, she sent it out to the board members. And I was like, well, who in the heck does this guy think he is? And he's no longer there or has now been put somewhere else or something. But what are we going to do about this firing range? That's what I'm talking about. what are we going to do? Because it's on our only source aquifer. It's crazy.
That's right. So I called sort of a stop, just stop, and with the intention, along with House member Rep. Dylan Fernandez, we filed legislation so that major projects with I think it's over 10 acres, really get looked at by the community, and that there is, for that sort of redevelopment, which it is, that there's a required protocol for outreach. Now, that's not to say that in the military's view, in their reports for selectmen, where they are very good at sort of giving a general update, come annually, and I was chair of the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth at several of those updates,
right?
And I call it knocking on a window with a sponge, because I'm not going to dispute that they felt that the possibility of the project was mentioned. What I'll say is that listening intently, as I do to most presentations, it wasn't highlighted to the extent that we could do good constituent outreach. And so that's what I'm calling for right now. The review board is right now the environmental review board is trying to get members so that they have a full quorum and can figure out the way they're going to do a meeting in the COVID situation that we have now, or when the next meeting is. And I see that as an opportunity for the base to do more community outreach. Now, the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth demanded it, and there is a meeting scheduled.
There's one here too, I believe.
Which will, and that's the good thing about involving
conversation
legislators and saying, let's put the brakes on, let's go back, and let's really hear the concerns of the neighbors, of the environmentalists. As you said, we've had a very expensive water concern caused by the base for years, and we're dealing with it. And that is no way saying that the base is not a good neighbor. It's no way, saying that we, in terms of Cape residents, and are not supportive of the base. The space station base, I went to that opening. These are incredibly dedicated men and women,
of course,
that are ready to put their lives in front of us going forward. They're professionals. They have, their code, their training, and that's something incredibly special. And so that my action has been about let's make sure everyone is informed. Let's figure out a way to support the base so they can continue to operate on Cape Cod, and figure out what it needs to do that, but without clear cutting and potentially putting at risk our water. So that's the force that we're going forward with here, along with the base.
The base is a large place, very large place, and I don't personally think that warfare is going to be fought with machine guns. Yes, I know men and women have to know how to shoot. However, I don't think that's how it's going to be fought. The next war is going to be up in the sky. It's going to be a whole different kind of thing. We're having a war right now, which is through hacking, in a sense.
Hacking, drones. There's technology
there's lots of it. My whole concern is it's on the lens of the water source for the Upper Cape.
Right.
There's a big base out there. Go put it on the other side. And I would just think, and I'm not a military person. I did have a brother in the Marines, so once a Marine, always a Marine. And my father fought in World War I when he was 16, so overseas. So I understand all that stuff, as I like to call it. What I don't understand is why they have not communicated. It was almost as if they were a #1 super fun site in America, which kind of was kept under the quiet and down low too, for lots of reasons, and I understand that. However, now, we know what happened. We know they're cleaning it up, and they still have issues. and now they want to do this. It's just like it makes my head explode.
Well, a lot of folks think it's illogical that, where they're doing such a good job now communicating and updating
Right.
on the water hazards and,
Right.
and where they are in terms of the cleanup, it does seem illogical to risk our single source aquifer,
Right.
as you say. So that's the lead point here, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
lead point that the state
You can go shoot
environmental
guns. We
committee
don't care.
should take a look at. And so that's what I think you're going to see next is a lot more conversation, a lot more disclosure.
I hope so. I do hope so. And I don't mean to be so negative about it, but it's just I guess it caught me so off guard, 2 months ago, 3 months ago now, when it all kind of came to view for everyone to see. And your letter was just so spot on. It was like, stop this. Let's talk. What are you
short.
doing?
Exactly. And a lot of folks are transitional here, whether they're summer, whether they, are away for work or visiting, and not everyone gets their information the first time or in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We always can never, better put, we never can do enough outreach.
Right. Well, and you're right. Communication. It's funny because I've worked for several different companies and a couple of nonprofits. And the number one thing with everything is communication. You got to talk to each other. Just let us know what's going on. That's all. It's not a...
That's why I'm so glad to be here. I mean, to
Yeah.
start a term right after, right before COVID hit, when
Right.
I was able to announce the funding for the new bridges.
Right.
And then for everyone to go into lockdown and have to be really, through several more elections, primaries and otherwise,
Right.
and to look at how do we communicate in this new situation of the pandemic. And the bottom line is, first of all, appreciate where the other person is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had not received their unemployment, had lost their jobs, afraid of their health, afraid for their kids. The job of a legislator is about understanding because you're a problem, hopefully, fixer, in the
Right.
sense that, if I can't, pretty much I'm about rooting
You're not
you.
like a fixer like Michael Cohen fixer.
No, not in the least. But I can show you where to get the good resource
Right.
to the person who
Right.
actually can do the fixing.
Right.
Just this morning, I had someone with the Department of Transportation. 7 o'clock in the morning, I was speaking with DOT and getting that person what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone else, it was actually a Plymouth, a husband and wife business, had got an international award, notwithstanding during COVID, and contacted my office. Maria Serrano is my chief of staff.
Yeah.
She doesn't sleep, that woman. And, these people,
You need those people.
We've got to send them a congratulatory letter. I mean,
Sure.
so it's really about I think all of us, whether it's kids in school, wonderful communicators who you reach people in their living rooms in a way that no
I
one
hope
else
so.
could.
There's a couple here and there.
And
Middle of the night when they can't sleep.
That's been our sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
It has been our sunshine.
Well, you brought up and just happened to mention those bridges, those crazy bridges. I actually went to a meeting in Bourne for Wendy to read a statement. Oh gosh. Well, we were still open then, I think. I can't remember. Yeah, we were still open. I think must have been the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, before everything closed down. And it was a big meeting with Bourne, and there were a lot of people there who lived in the area who are, they just built a house, and now it's going to probably be taken by eminent domain. Those bridges are beyond needed. And what scares me is, there was a huge bridge that fell down in Minnesota or someplace a few years ago. Wisconsin, Minnesota, I think. And can you just imagine if there was some sort of a disaster like that? Or there's a disaster on the Cape and they ask us all to leave.
Right, exactly.
Where are we going? Who's got the boat?
Right. We are an island. We depend on,
Right.
for our families are across the bridges, our doctors, So, as I said, I was pleased to be closing that funding loop to get the funding from the state to come into Barnstable to get the design of the bridges moving. Now, that being said, it's a prime example of where we need to continue communications, because if folks, and I did this with Route 28 expansion in Falmouth as chair of the Board of Selectmen. Folks who were, and this is my analogy, so folks who lived very close to the highway had planted a tree maybe 20 years ago that, that was a loving piece of their property, also property values. And they perceived the state as coming in and almost clear cutting, again, to use a term. And as chair of the Board of Selectmen, I said, let's stop right here. Let's put together a group of state experts, town experts, and the transportation folks and bike path, but also more importantly, the folks that are going to be affected.
Right.
And the folks that
impacted by this.
Exactly. And because guess what? There are oftentimes ways to look at a concern from that other person's viewpoint and make an adjustment. Well, gee, there's a tree there. Rather than cutting the tree down, let's do one of those square things that you often see in the city that protects the tree, and you can still get the bike and the baby carriages around. So that's the model I'd like to use with the bridges going forward. We have wonderful partners, and Congressman Keating has been a leader here.
Yeah,
They're all Senator Markey.
Well, now we have Secretary Pete.
Exactly.
And he's all about transportation and trains. I'm so surprising because he's from Indiana. I would never think he'd be about trains.
I've got them on speed dial. If someone has a concern, let's raise that to, because guess what? There are a lot of other people that might have the same concern.
Right.
And that's really what government is for. It's for expediting and helping folks out. Now, the major process of government is never coupled with the word expediting. But I will say, coming into the Senate as a new person, there's really incredible camaraderie. And I have time and time again experienced where there is a difference of opinion. And I'll be speaking with Senator Boncory, who's the head of transportation, later today about an issue. And, the conversation is often, well, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that done. But what about this? Like sort of really problem solving. And that's the good thing people should know about the Massachusetts Senate. I've not encountered, whether Republican or Democrat, a leader, person, senator who isn't there to benefit their community and their district and to help all of us do the same thing.
Well, and that's wonderful because you know what? A lot of people don't think that that's happening up there on Beacon Hill.
I was a little surprised at the camaraderie, I must say.
Yeah. So with Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
And independents. I'm sure there's an independent thrown in there somewhere.
Rep, I believe, yes.
Yeah.
But people should know that.
Yeah. That is good to know. Well, you've got a big year coming up. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be an interesting year, I think. I have to admit, I don't know whether Governor Baker's going to run again or not. He'll make that decision, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. However, he hasn't done a bad job. Everybody knows that I happen to be more of a liberal persuasion than he is. But however, I think he's handled things pretty good, except for the rollout of the vaccine.
I have to agree. There are a lot of things that, where he stepped up to a challenge. And that being said, you need that tug and pull of, the executive branch and the legislative branch. So it's, as the rollout of the big funds comes, I think the plan to listen to the communities and the municipalities is the best way going forward. And the legislator will do it and inform the governor of what we've heard.
That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to make a pitch. Okay? My pitch is for culture, for the arts. And the reason why we need the arts, it's not just so people can play act on a stage once in a while, or your dentist can have a leading role in something. It affects everybody from kids through grandmothers and great-grandmothers and grandfathers. It expands your horizons. It makes you think about things. It's an education in itself, and it feeds your soul, both visual and performing arts, and music certainly. So I hope that there'll be some thought process that, it's usually the arts are the first to go. Oh, well, we need a new road, get rid of the arts. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be, somehow it should all be, as you said, they should all work together.
You're sort of talking to the choir, to use a good analogy. So when COVID challenged the reopening of performance venues,
Right.
I was there trying to explain to the governor,
Right.
this is a unique economic engine.
Right.
We need this, and we've got to look at it and find parameters that work, because they need lead
Right.
times to
Right.
have, the learn your lines and do the sets
Right.
and all those things. So we're going to continue to press for that going forward.
Good.
And it's a tourism driver. It's when we bring folks here to look at our wonderful productions and all over the state, it has a positive effect with business dollars going up, which keeps our tax burdens low. And
Right.
we've got to look at it as just as important as all of our other economic drivers.
Well, especially on Cape Cod, because we're a tourist there. And it's the same on Cape Ann. It's the same there,
Right.
where you've got these two big tourist areas. I know Boston is important, obviously, but Boston has other things too. It has medical and colleges and universities, but here we have artists. We have visual and performing artists that are sometimes every bit as good as what you might see someplace else. It's very regional, and it's just such a wonderful thing. It's such a resource for people.
It's part of the fabric of the Cape,
Yeah.
and it's something we can offer folks who are visiting who might not be able to take time to really indulge in that rich art, but when they're on vacation, maybe they can do more. So it, and also for children children have varieties of talent. And it's something that they can really dive in and shine with. And
True.
so we should be offering that as every other academic opportunity to young people. And, I think it gives our entire community an opportunity to pause in awe of someone who has that particular talent. My mother was an artist. My handwriting's messy. I didn't get any of it. That being said, I got an extreme appreciation. And that makes me smile.
Sure. Well, it's something inside of you. It definitely affects you, something inside of you, and we're fortunate here in town. We have a lot of organizations. One is going to do some public art soon, which will be directed towards our glass factory area here in Sandwich, which is a huge, as you know, a huge portion of our visitors come about the glass museum and the glass factory that was located here many years ago. So, we're fortunate to be able to have some public art, but there needs to be more of it. You look at the Rose Kennedy Greenway, and I walked it, not intentionally, mind you, but my husband and I took the wrong boat from Hingham and got let off way down there.
Lucky lost.
Yes. So we walked up the Greenway to the seaport, and it's a hike. And but all the public art that was there, and you look at that and you go, oh my God, this should be everywhere in Massachusetts.
It should be, and particularly on the Cape. We need to expose our young folks and our young families to those opportunities that a lot of us had. And, when we're more often in Boston. And I think that's going to be, we've got to look at economic development on the Cape as sort of the spokes on a wheel, that we're stronger the more spokes that we add.
Sure.
And that's also the way we sustain, because we, as a destination, the harder the bedrock is, the less it will be susceptible to erosion, to use a climate change, analogy.
Well, climate change, we could do a whole program on climate
Exactly.
change for sure. There's no doubt about
Making
it.
headway.
Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, we're going to be standing in water if we don't watch out, you
Absolutely.
know, which is kind of, it is kind of crazy. But one more thing about the arts, you know, other countries, European countries, oh my God, I said it, that those people across the pond, they have educated their children in art forever, almost since the medieval times. There was a woman who started First Night in Boston, and I'm sorry her name escapes me, and I did First Night Cape Cod here with several other people years and years ago in the early 90s. And she was the founder of First Night Boston, and she was an artist. And she and her artist friends would get together on New Year's Eve, and, you know, somebody's brownstone, and have cocktails and a nice dinner and talk about art. And then one day they said, well, wait a minute, we're doing it here. What if, said all those drunk people out there, what if we did something where the everyday man could see art and see it performed? And that's how it got started, seriously. But her words that stuck with me were the everyday man. And that's what we need. And we need it in South Dakota, and we need it on Cape Cod, and we need it in Mississippi, and we need it in California, and we need it in everywhere, so that the everyday man gets that feeling. They may not understand it right away or say, what the heck? Needless to say, it's good for them. It's good for them to see that. And it has always stuck with me. So the everyday man, think of the everyday man. And I think you're a person who actually thinks about the everyday man.
Absolutely. I always look at things in the other person's shoes. I was trained that way as a lawyer. But when you talk about the everyday man, it's, you know, you look at our brains and how every piece has a purpose. The arts really nourish and expand that piece of everyone's brain. Every man's brain can be a sponge for the arts, and that can be passed on in other ways of communication. So I agree with you. It's something we have to stop, taking for granted as far as, having it be sort of one of the first to go when we have to, scrunch down on our resources.
That's what they do to kids in schools. They get rid of gym, which they should be exercising, and they get rid of the arts. Now, kids in high school don't like gym, but let's give them an opportunity to do something else then.
Something
if they don't want
physical,
right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of all the same thing, I think. You can't look at these things as we can just toss them out because it also helps with other parts of communication and writing and mathematics and science and all of that works together. It's how you reconnects your brain.
It does.
Anyway, but the other thing too is we did just touch on it briefly. It was quite brief. Climate change. So what is Massachusetts doing about climate change?
So
besides electric cars, I know everybody wants an electric car.
One of the great successes, notwithstanding COVID, is that the big climate change bill did pass. So it's, you're going to see more efficiencies in appliances. You're going to see transportation is going to be a really big place, whether when you look at the Cape RTA, as electric buses get more dependable, less expensive, there'll be opportunities for invest. If we look at the ocean turbines that are proliferating, and one of the biggest points that I make about coming out of COVID is that we need to invest our tax dollars. Because I'm cheap. I grew up lower middle class.
You're thrifty.
I'm thrifty. If I'm going to pay for something, taxes or otherwise, I want to know what the return is.
Yeah, I think we all do.
And that's exactly the way we look at these investments. So with the investment that this state is making in ocean wind energy, those are all job creators. We look at the, Mass Maritime, one of the incredible resources we have right on Cape. Right. And I work closely with them. And you've got ocean turbines going. So this whole, one of the things we were sort of reluctantly taught by having to deal with Zoom all the time,
Right.
is that, nothing, a lot of us would have chosen, but darn, I can do it.
Right.
And that's the way I think we want more people to be able to work from home, because guess what? It keeps cars off the road,
Right.
and it keeps our air cleaner. And cars off the road keeps us less frustrated, right?
Right.
And being able to work more at home, we're able to enjoy our family more, maybe do more things with
less
kids,
stress.
less stress. And in fact, I have a tax bill that really promotes that. And so, these are all things that, climate change, just as I do a lot of things, I look at as an economic driver, along with saving the planet and keeping us all healthier going forward.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to all those initiatives.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, we all worry about that a lot, I think. And we hear so much about it and the raging fires, and here this year, for some bizarre reason, we're too wet. However, it's an issue here, it really is. So, I'm not quite sure where the answer is going to be, or it'll be in my lifetime, but certainly, if we start to address it now, it may help my grandkids and their kids.
Exactly. We're seeing, along with my colleague Doug Brown, I created the first climate initiative in Falmouth that the mandate was, yes, we have a lot of studies because we're fortunate on the Cape to have all these wonderful scientific organizations.
I know,
And otherwise, the mandate to the panel was do something, action items. It's climate action. And so I think just publicizing those reports, and my friend Charlie McCaffrey has done a great job in moving that initiative along with the committee and the experts.
Yep.
But it's about letting people know what the options are going forward. Certain, shore roads, they're lovely. They're part of our identity.
Right.
What is the price tag at keeping that going forward?
Right.
What is the price tag at retreat? We have to let people know what their choices are so that they can decide where they want to spend their tax dollars and again, what will be the return.
Well, and again, it all comes back to the environment for us too. I mean, the environment is so important here. It's beyond belief important here. So, and then it all goes back to that sole source aquifer. I'm trying to do a connection.
There we go. There we go.
So, what else is on your agenda, Missy?
So,
wait, can I call a state senator Missy?
It's funny. My middle daughter, Shannon, who's an NP, breast cancer oncology, a doctor of nursing, I've called her Missy since day one. So that just makes me smile. And and I'm of the kind of women's lib era where I think women have their own strength and are so uniquely talented that you're good communicators as well. So it's a very thank you for that. It makes me smile and prideful at the same time.
I'll hear from somebody that was disrespectful. Well, but I don't mean it that way.
It would only be if it was to me, which is totally the opposite. You have this sixth sense about how to touch people, and you touched me. What's in store? What's in store right now is I'm hopefully going to be able to get out in person more. I was at an event in Plymouth late last night. I'll be going to Woods Hole late the next day or two. Long days at the computer and sitting is productive in its sense, but you don't get that touch of seeing people in the face and them really understanding that I believe my job is single-fold in that service. I am only here to help you with what you need. And I have resources that are unique that I've earned to do that. And so I'm looking forward to shaking hands, meeting with people,
kissing babies.
But what is the foundation of that? The foundation of that is keeping the pandemic at bay, keeping COVID in a box so that it's not passed around. And the best way that we can do that is make sure that everyone has the double shot or that it is vaccinated. And that so that's really the message right now is let's just look at it as a health concern. Let's look at it as an economic concern because we don't want our restaurants to close. We don't want our vibrant tourism economy to be crumbling. We want our friends who are in business. We want to see our grandchildren and our family, and we want our vulnerable folks to, to be able to live their vibrant lives as well.
Sure.
And so, and with the, the variations of
I know.
COVID coming in, so that's my twofold. One is shake more hands. The other is, really help everyone as best I can to be COVID cognizant and to be able to wear a mask if that's where you're comfortable, to be sensitive about your situation and your level of risk, because we want everyone to be healthy, and that will keep our businesses and our economy going.
I'm just going to ask, you are vaccinated.
I'm absolutely vaccinated.
And I am absolutely vaccinated. So out there, everybody should be vaccinated. There shouldn't even be a question about this.
Absolutely.
I mean, I saw a funny thing, a meme on Facebook, that horrible thing, Facebook, that I spend time on. And it said, we didn't get rid of polio and smallpox with herd immunity. We had vaccines for it. That's why it's not around.
Exactly. And, that's not to say that I don't understand, for example, some parents' concerns about their children.
Well, I'm talking about adult people who are rational folk.
You're absolutely right on.
That's what I'm
right
talking
on.
About. Kids, that's a whole different thing. And I think people have to think about their own children and what their health issues are, and if they have any.
Right.
I'm fortunate that I have kids who have kids, and they've all been vaccinated because they have no health issues. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
But I know there are parents out there that worry about that. So, but they need to get vaccinated. That's what we need to do. So you have a lot on your plate.
I do.
Are you going to go back to the State House at all now?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Meet in person?
Absolutely.
Oh, you are. I mean, so you got to reconvene.
It's really the point of going back to the State House. Really, in my view, is for constituents to be able to come as well.
Sure.
So the Senate President is putting together a process with a very sort of antique building with not great airflow. How is that done safely?
Right.
And to be able for staff to have flexibility,
right.
and to balance the whole telecommuting thing in a way that is the most productive and the most open and connected. So I'm looking forward to that. It's so crucial to have relationships with colleagues so that you can do the community's work and have things passed, because as everyone knows, a lot of it is, if you understand the other person's goals, then you can decide to sign on and help a little bit easier. And so I've been doing as much outreach as I can, but it's not the same as in person. I'm looking forward to that.
Right. Well, and you're right. And again, it's about the communication. If the more you know somebody, and you know what their kids' names are, and what the wife's name or husband's names are, it makes a huge difference in how your approach is.
Absolutely.
And that's the benefit for having you up there.
It is, and it's where my energy has always been.
Right.
Like I just feel so energized at where we are to go forward and do more, and to be even more responsive to constituents.
Sure. Well, I want to thank you. Will you come back again in 6 months and talk to us?
I'm very pleased to. You make it so easy. I mean,
thank you for that.
It's not dry. It's not dry.
No, it's never dry. Well, I'm not smart enough to make it not easy.
God.
Trust me, no.
Those are the smartest.
However, it is. It's wonderful to have you here. And by the way, if you're not doing anything, if you're around this weekend, we have a play going on the Museums on the Green, and it's for the nonprofit Woods Hole Theater Company. However, a person from Sandwich is in it, and a person from Falmouth is in it, starring in it.
Then I have to. I've got to support my constituents.
That's right, and the person producing it, you happen to know. So I'm sure you could just walk in anytime, and they would be able to. You have to bring your own chair though, because it's outside.
I'm cool with that. I think that's one of the bright stars of where we are, and coming out healthier right now. So appreciate you, all the work that it takes to go into that, your expertise and your posse.
Well, yes, there is a posse, more so than me, but anyway. So thank you again for joining me today. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you.